Hello, Google I/O. My name is Kevin Moore. I'm a product manager on the Dart team. And today I'm joined with a bunch of product managers and DevRel at Google here to talk about Flutter and Dart and all things on the server. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Howdy, folks. I'm Tony Pujals. I'm an engineer and developer advocate at Google Cloud.
Hey, folks. I'm Grant Timmerman, a serverless developer relations engineer at Google Cloud.
Hi all, I am Michael Thomsen, and I am a product manager working mostly on the Dart platform.
Perfect. And we've already got a bunch of questions coming in to our Dory, and we recommend anyone that's watching live right now, please submit questions, so we'll try to get them out to you. We'll start one here from Sean. The question is, what's the best way to handle communication between my Flutter app and a backend? How can I reduce boilerplate? Michael, could you take a stab at that one?
Yeah, sure. You have a number of options. We've got a pretty comprehensive networking library you can use. You can also take a look at the shelf package, which is a nice little framework for handling the serving side. It can help you with things like routing and logging and so on. And you can even take a look at things like gRPC if you want a slightly more structured and code-gen-based approach to your communication.
So it sounds like we have a number of options that we're pretty happy with to handle communication there.
Yep.
And then go ahead. Sorry.
And there's probably many more that I forgot. You know, as always, when doing these kinds of things, we have a great package repository at pub.dev. That you can probably find even more options at.
Sounds great. Yeah, we tend to do a lot of JSON, I think, with our ecosystem. And I forget, did you mention JSON serializable? And we have built value. We have a number of ways so that you can share code and make sure that you're not repeating things like serialization code to make those RPC setups much easier. We have another question here from John. And I think this is actually good for Michael too. He says, I'm used to using Dart as part of Flutter, which I think a lot of folks that are using Dart are using Flutter. And he wants to know, how do I think about Dart running by itself or its server? I guess we don't talk about that much with a big emphasis on Flutter. But Michael, do you have some wisdom for him?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really fun question because it's something we do ourselves all the time. If you look at things you may know from Flutter, like the Flutter tool, that's actually written in Dart. The Dart tool itself is written in Dart. So it's actually a really good language for doing things like command line apps. And we've got great packages for things like parsing arguments and handling I/O and whatnot. You could combine it with something like our FFI, foreign function interface, if you wanted to call out to native code. And there's all kinds of options there. So I think generally this whole area of command line applications is a nice little thing to work on with Dart. Yeah,
like we run Dart everywhere. And my understanding too is, I shouldn't say my understanding, I know it pretty well. The tools we use to compile native apps in Flutter, you can use on the desktop or the server as well, right?
That's true, and they some of the same nice properties apply, right? So when you AOT compile your command line app into an executable, it becomes self-contained. So you can give that command line tool to someone else, and they don't need the Dart SDK installed to run it. Of course, if you're running on the cloud, you're running in an environment you control. So there, you're probably looking for small file sizes. And again, by AOT compiling your server into a small executable, it's something that combines really well with serving and things like Docker images.
Perfect. There's actually a great lead into our next question here from Lucy. She asks, if I want to try doing something with Dart and serverless and a Flutter app, what's the easiest way to get started? Maybe we can jump over to our friends from the serverless team here at Google. Tony, you want to try that one?
Yeah, definitely. Probably the easiest way to get started is to take a look at the Dart functions framework. We make it super easy for you to spin up a service that you can run on Cloud Run, which is our serverless backend. And instead of writing a complete server application, you're literally just going to write some Dart code in a function that's going to respond to an event, whether it's an HTTP request or a cloud event. And we make it really easy to bundle that up, and you can deploy that to Cloud Run with a single command using gcloud. We've got docs for that. We have examples for that. You can just go to go take a look at the repo for that. And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably somewhere where they can find a link.
Oh yeah, I think we'll make sure the links in the video here after the fact. And we have this is a good time to plug my talk. I talk about, Google APIs and letting up your Flutter app. And we have links there. I think the short link is dart.dev/go/cloud. And we have links to all those things. Right. And really quick, Tony, I just, I think it's important to talk about the layer cake here, right? So, Michael mentioned we can run Dart on server, which is great. The next layer up is we provide Docker images. So that means anywhere that runs containers. So you can think about anywhere that runs, that's all the cloud providers, anyone that can do Kubernetes, you can do Docker. The next layer is, okay, so, we can Dockerize a Dart server app. And then the function framework's even another layer, just trying to make things super easy. Like I just write a function and we can deploy it, right?
Yes. Yes, should point out that some of the things that make Dart so good at what it does, that make it run so fast and allows you to build that small final AOT compiled image, as Michael already mentioned, does make it ideal for running in serverless in cloud infrastructure. And generally, the unit of deployment in cloud infrastructure is going to be a Docker container. And whether you want to deploy that and run it on any of our backend platforms, which include GKE and Google Compute Engine, but we definitely recommend a path that will take you to serverless. And we show how easy it is to do that. If you go look at the Fullstack example, where we have a Flutter app talking to a Dart function that you write that's providing the backend for you on Cloud Run. But yes, by the way, since you mentioned Docker, we're thrilled actually that we're at a point now where we actually have an official Docker image that's been vetted by the Docker team that meets its standards for best practices, security, and all of that kind of stuff. Because we're taking this really seriously, as far as you being able to leverage building backends for your Flutter apps on Google Cloud.
That sounds great. Yeah, we've had a Docker image for a while that we've kind of maintained and put under the Google umbrella, I think, on Docker Hub. But now being official, one, just we make sure we're following best practices in there from the Docker folks. So you can be confident that we're doing the right things in terms of helping you containerize and deploy your applications. I have another question here, and I might take this one from Caleb. He's curious. Are there Dart packages to make using GCP services easier? Yes, there are. And it's actually, again, back to this kind of layer cake, I think it's important to discuss. So obviously, anywhere you can run a container, you can run Dart. It's pretty straightforward, and we have support there. So you don't really need a package. We tend to recommend people use the Shelf package. And there's a few other ones that we support, just making server apps easy to do. And again, if you go to that cloud page I referenced earlier for Dart, dart.dev/go/cloud, we have documentation for how to write an HTTP server and get started there. And then on top of that, we do maintain some packages. So we've done work on the Google APIs package, which gives you access to dozens, I think we're over 180 now, different APIs that Google provides. And so those are things like YouTube and Calendar on the user side, and then, Kubernetes and Memcache and AI and image recognition and all those things in the back end. And again, shameless plug, my talk gets into some of those API classes we recommend. And then finally, as Tony just mentioned, we do have this function framework package that we've worked on that makes it really easy to deploy these kind of services. So let me look down quick. It looks like we have a question from Marcus here up next. I know there's been a lot of work done with function framework and Dart. What is the status of that today? Is it mainly for Cloud Run, or can it be used with Cloud Functions? Maybe this would be a good one. We can have Grant chime in here.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of talking about this mysterious functions framework, right? So what is the functions framework, right? Well, first, it's a open source set of libraries that allows you to write your code as a function and deploy it on a server. So it's a really tight interface that available now in it's actually 9 different languages: Node, Python, Go, Java, C++, Dart, PHP, Ruby, etc. Probably missed one, but it basically allows you to consume an HTTP request or a cloud event. Right now, you can go, there's 7 different languages available for cloud functions right now, and we're working on more. But you can use the Dart functions framework today with Cloud Run, and you can go listen to HTTP requests and to cloud events via EventArc. In fact, using cloud functions and Cloud Run is pretty similar. It's just that the difference is you can use the Dart functions framework, the functions framework, but you deploy a container rather than your source kit.
Perfect. And I mean, and getting back to one of the things, is it mainly for Cloud Run or can it be used with other places? So, we've done work with things like EventArc to make sure that if you follow the cloud event spec, you can plug into a bunch of Google services, right, and listen to events. So that's great. But in the end, it's just an HTTP server. And so they can use the Dart function framework to run their function code anywhere that they run containers. It doesn't have to be on Google Cloud. We think it's good to run a Google Cloud, but they can run it anywhere.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kevin. So one of the goals of the functions framework is you can run your function locally. It's really great for local development and testing. And you can also go deploy it on Cloud Run. And for some runtimes, you can deploy on Cloud Functions, but you can also deploy it on other clouds.
Perfect.
Hey, I'd like to jump in and just add something to what Grant said. You actually can get an experience pretty close to Cloud Functions today with a new command that's in beta for G-Cloud. So you actually can deploy your source and have it get built on the back end and deploy to Cloud Run. You don't actually have to build an image and think about deploying that as a container, which is pretty cool. Just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah, I think you have to go looking at the beta documentation. I think in the docs for the function framework, we get into that a little bit, right? So there's one command and basically it's build and deploy. You can just do it once. Yeah. Hopefully that will leave beta soon, but it is a beta command if you have the G Cloud, the Google Cloud SDK installed. I have a question here from Torben, and it has, I don't know, is it the Groucho Marx glasses? It makes me nervous here, emoji. It's the question for Dart on Firebase functions. We are using Dart2JS functions for Firebase in our company. So it sounds like they're compiling Dart code to JavaScript to run in Firebase functions so that we can do all the Dart full stack development, which is great. We know there's a Dart functions internal development, but is there some timeline on that so we can contribute that, or can we contribute to that in any way? So it sounds like these folks want to get away from using Dart2JS, which is a great model, but probably a little clunky. You'd rather just run Dart. Tony, do you have any wisdom on kind of future plans there? We generally don't talk about future stuff, but
yeah, what I can say is that we are definitely really thinking hard about making this happen for the community that has expressed such enthusiasm for this. There are some technical hurdles that we still have to overcome, and there's some alignment that we have to do to get things to work symmetrically across both platforms. So we're not there yet. This has been incubating and developing very rapidly over the past 2 quarters. And we would love to see this happen. Obviously, cloud function support means that we can then provide the Firebase functions foundation that the community would love to see. We're working on that, and we hope that we can share great news. And as you can see, we are iterating as quickly as we can on this in general. And by the way, to the community that has helped in terms of stars and views, you've already helped the functions framework, the Dart functions framework, become our second most popular repo for a functions framework here at Google out of all 9 languages that we support. So that's definitely getting the attention of folks about how much we can try to do to accelerate that timeline.
Yeah, I think
I'd also like to point out. So right now, Firebase function supports Node and TypeScript. It actually uses sort of the same backend infrastructure as Cloud Functions and sort of our serverless computing infrastructure. So yeah, we'd really like to get Dart on Cloud Functions and sort of support that. In terms of ways you can help out, I think there's been some really great GitHub issues and conversations. Your ideas on GitHub, we read them and really consider them. Pull requests are even better. And we'd really love to hear your feedback, your different use cases. There's a bunch of different ideas, especially with like cloud events and support that we'll do in the future.
Yeah, so start using it. We're I guess use it. Give feedback on it. Just like the Dart and Flutter teams, we respond to kind of what the squeakiest wheel and the most interest is. And the cloud folks obviously are super busy too, working on lots of cool things, as I'm sure people have heard at I/O this year. And so the more hear about Dart and Flutter and wanting to run things, that gives us, I guess I use ammo in soft quotes. We don't mean it in an aggressive way, but more evidence that this is a desired thing. Something else that's good to mention too, and I realize, Firebase functions has a very specific, provides specific functions that are very useful. But even with Firebase hosting right now, you can specify a route in your hosting configuration to point to Cloud Run. And so you could have a Flutter web app deployed on Firebase hosting and define a URI that points to a container, and that containerized application could be Dart running in Google Cloud on Cloud Run. So we have some of these building blocks already in place, but it's good to hear the feedback that people are still excited about having Firebase function. We want that too. And we're talking to the team. So quickly here, looking at my list, Alistair has a question. I guess we're jumping back a little bit to more simple topics, which might be good. I'm interested in this full stack Flutter concept. What all is involved and how can this improve my Flutter mobile experience? So we haven't heard from Michael in a bit. Do you want to reference that or talk to that a bit, Michael?
Right. I think it's something, we've seen going back all the time, right? If you are writing a mobile app, you are likely to at some point need a service. In many cases, there are shelf and ready-made services you can use. And Kevin, you mentioned all those, is it 180 APIs you can call? But sometimes you need something that's slightly different, and you would like to sort of lift a little bit of your business logic into a backend. I think the ability to do that, to take a bit of code and just put it inside a ready-made framework, and then use the power of the cloud, and not having to think about it as a server, but just really a part of your app that's running in a service that you don't need to manage. I think it's a very powerful concept. And I think it goes, the whole dream of Flutter is that you have a single team, right? And so I think of it as just, another platform, right? You have a team that's spanning iOS, Android, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and now also the cloud.
I think that's great. And this is something we've talked about a lot, which is, we are not investing, we're investing in the Dart and Flutter teams. We're very focused on Flutter, making sure Flutter is a great experience. We're not building out a whole new server team. That's a lot of work. There's, Go and Java that have huge, long legacies in the server space. There's frameworks like, Rails, and, WordPress. We're not, the teams at Google aren't spending time thinking about Dart in those spaces. Like, there's huge investments there. But thinking about just what makes sense for developers, if you just want to glue services together and do a little bit of code, it's painful to have to jump over and like, oh, now I have to understand and do Java, or now I have to understand JavaScript. There's lots of developers that do that, but just in terms of your team, it might be easier just to stay in Dart. And so for these kind of service gluey type things, we want to make those types of things easy. And we think we have the bits today that makes it easy, at least pretty straightforward. And we're hoping other people will try it out and let us know how it goes. Quick question here from Casper, and we've covered this a little bit, but maybe we should, just to be more clear about the differences here. He asks, how does the function framework, in general, I guess, or maybe the Dart implementation of the function framework, how does it relate to the Firebase functions or cloud functions? Grant, do you want to try that one?
Yeah, I can take that. So the function framework, no matter which language you choose, the function framework is a dependency for your cloud function. You can specify it explicitly or not. It'll sort of be added there. And so that's sort of how the functions framework relates to cloud functions. It's a dependency of your application. And then Firebase functions is sort of a layer on top of that that allows you to have this experience where you can use the Firebase CLI and you can host multiple functions at a time, and you can write in TypeScript and have that developer experience. So that's quick way to introduce them.
So there's
and I'd like to jump in. Hey, I just want to jump in. I agree with everything that Grant was saying here. But one thing that I think is interesting is while you can use Cloud Run to run pretty much anything that you can containerize, we also, with the Dart Functions framework, we make it really easy for you to get the same experience that you can't get today on Cloud Functions. We give you that experience on Cloud Run. We make it as easy for you to package up some Dart code that you write to respond to an event, which includes an HTTP request, any of the HTTP verbs, get, post, whatever, gRPC, add WebSocket support, whatever you want to do, but by writing a function as opposed to writing a full-blown server-based application for your backend. And we do that so that you can have that symmetric experience on Cloud Run today, since it's not available on Cloud Functions. And I want to add one more thing, although it's not awesome, you can consider writing Firebase functions that can help relay information to something that you deploy as a Dart function to Cloud Run. So you can still build very sophisticated, actually, microservice-y type backends using Dart today and taking advantage of Cloud Run. So, we really feel that serverless in general, don't get too fixated on whether it's Cloud Functions or anything else or Cloud Run. We just feel that taking advantage of our serverless platform is the easiest way for you to onboard onto Google Cloud, and we're making it as easy as possible with the Dart Functions framework.
Cool.
And I'd like to chime in.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I like to think of it as different layers of abstraction. Right? If you want to go write a function, you can go write a function. If you want to write a container, you can write a container. It depends, and you get trade-offs of, well, do you want to control exactly what's inside of your container and all? And I like to recommend using PubSub for the event interchange between different services and between different languages. You can do that today with Dart, the functions framework, and using EventArc, and send PubSub events to your container.
Perfect. And then we have, as part of the Google APIs package, we support PubSub. So if you want to forward on events or, send PubSub messages from your Dart code and start other workflows, workflow is something else. I always get confused here. But it's two-way street. You can consume PubSub from Dart, and also you can be invoked by PubSub. And actually, there's a good follow-up here question from Robert, wanting to know what's unique about the Dart Functions framework. And I want to jump in here because this is actually some stuff that I worked on. And this gets to what Tony mentioned, which is it's just a function. And so writing an HTTP server isn't super hard, especially with Dart. But there are things you need to think about in terms of am I listening to localhost or to Anycast? What port am I listening on? All those things. We take care of all that for you. You just write a function. And then we provide a number of abstractions on top of that function. So you can write a function that takes an HTTP request and returns an HTTP response, which is probably the simplest thing. And some of the fun stuff we added was using our build technology, you can define your function to just take an arbitrary class. And so you can have the input to your function be anything that has a from JSON method, meaning it can be serialized from JSON or deserialized from JSON, I should say. And then your return type can be anything that can be serialized to JSON. And so you can just, I could say, oh, I have a function that takes in an order object or a parameter of type object. A parameter of type order. I'm going to be concrete here and accurate, and return a value of type order response, for instance. And as long as those do JSON correctly, we will wrap it and handle it correctly and provide good errors if the wrong type of data comes over the wire. And so you just think about your business logic. And as long as it supports JSON, we handle the rest. And so we try to make that as easy as possible for composing these things. I don't know if Tony, if you have anything you want to add there.
No, that's a really great answer. I think you really hit the nail on the head. We really make the experience easy for creating and then consuming something that you want to write that you're going to deploy to the back end. We make that about as transparent as you can possibly get. And that's it.
I was thinking,
one
are
last
there
thing.
like command line tools or templates that are part of the?
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that. Well, first of all, as part of mentioning that, I want to say I'm really excited to see that the Dart team has actually made now added, it's in the beta channel right now. Is it okay, Michael, if I talk about the fact that you can now actually generate a shelf application with a Docker file? So we're, again, this theme about make it even easier to go ahead and containerize your application so you can deploy to a back end. The Dart team is forging ahead. So the fact that that template is there, we have a tool in the Dart functions framework called Dart FN that makes it easy to scaffold a functions-based project. And who knows, and I'll leave this up to the PMs to decide if that'll ever make its way to Dart. But right now it's Dart FN, and you can use that tool from the Dart functions framework to scaffold a functions project. And there are several different types you can scaffold. A basic hello world type, a cloud event handler, and so forth. So yeah, definitely check it out. We tried to make the experience as easy as we can, but we'd love to get more feedback from the community as we iterate on this. And of course, your feedback, your support, and enthusiasm help justify moving ahead in this direction on the cloud side.
That's great. And actually, I mean, not a huge tangent, but I think all four of us are on Twitter in some way. I won't make us all read our handles, but you can come search for us. So if you're watching this live or later and you're curious about, the Dart FN tool or, scaffolding things, the work we've done here, check out the resources we have linked here, but also you just come find us on Twitter and we'll be happy to help you out and answer questions. I have another question here from Lars. Let me resize my window here just a second. So Lars is curious, what GCP database should I use with Dart? Michael, do you have any thoughts there?
I don't want for our good friends here from the cloud team take that one.
I don't want to monopolize. I mean, I'll jump in and take a stab at this. And I'm going to say that the one that you should use first and foremost should be the right one for your team. You have to decide if you want to use relational data, if you're fine with using structured documents that serialize well as JSON. These are going to be the most important considerations. And then obviously you're going to look for one that's supported with the right packages, the client libraries that make it easy to actually connect to that database. At the end of the day, we support a ton of database choices here at Google Cloud. Probably the best fit, I would say, for most of the Flutter community is going to be Firestore. I'm going to throw that out there just because it integrates so well with mobile solutions and provides that document-oriented, structured data approach. But we have Cloud SQL, and if your teams are used to SQL Server or PostgreSQL or MySQL, then run with Cloud SQL. That's going to be great. And then we have memory store. So if you're looking for key value storage like Redis or Memcache, go with that. You'll be well served by leveraging our database backends. I encourage probably most of you, if you don't know specifically what database you want, probably run with Firestore.
Yeah, and I know, right. And so if you're running your client app, obviously we have the Flutter Fire packages that support Firestore, so you can do that from your client. And then again, the Google APIs package will give you access on the back end, and that lets you do things like you can do as an admin, for instance. And if memory serves, I think those Google API packages do provide access to all the databases you mentioned. And obviously, if you're talking about Memcache or Redis or SQL databases, you probably want a more native API for those. I think we use Redis or Memcache for on the pub site, for instance. But you'll want to check out pub.dev. I have not kept up with the latest and greatest in terms of APIs that talk native SQL. So I recommend you check out pub.dev to see what's there. Probably the best thing. So we're going to go to another question here from Marcus. In the examples for the function framework, they're all responding to one function, at least that I've seen. How would I write multiple functions in a project? An example of that would be super cool. So I guess maybe to start with, that's a good feature request. So Marcus, file a pull request or an issue on the function framework repo. We'll get to that. But yeah, like Tony, how would I go about deploying, or maybe Grant, how would I go about deploying multiple functions?
So I have one take and one recommendation just in serverless in general. I really like to use PubSub as sort of the bridge for building my event-driven service. Some of the benefits of using PubSub is, well, you can have a very clean interface between two different services, two different functions, and you can have that bridge in the middle. PubSub integrates with literally a dozen GCP products. You can have Cloud Scheduler, schedule to send an email or do something. You can have PubSub to PubSub, and it's integrated with EventArc, and so you can use it today. You also have the option of just direct.
Actually, guys, forgive me. I think I'm hearing. Let me just repeat again. I think I'm being told we're getting close to time. Is that right? Okay, I feel like a late night host. So forgive me, guys. I'm going to make sure that we're respectful of the next folks coming on. But it was so great talking to you. And again, sorry for cutting off. I think we're at time here. But Tony, Michael, Grant, we're all on Twitter, so you can come find us on Twitter. If you're live here at I/O, I think we'll try to be hanging out maybe in the Flutter tent. Maybe you'll find Grant and Tony at the Cloud tent. I don't know which dome we'll go hang out at. But thank you so much for watching. Again, find us on Twitter if you have more questions, file issues, look at the function framework, documentation. And we're excited to see what people build with Flutter, Dart, and the cloud. So thanks everyone so much for watching today, and enjoy the rest of I/O.
Thank you.
Thanks.